Who are we? Hello and welcome to Sugar, Silk and Stretch, although he's not here on this particular occasion right now, but my name is Ben Doughty.
My name is Michael Silk Olajide.
And so there were two, Silk. This is how we started, so it doesn't phase us. It's all good. Maybe Gary will join us, and that's the kind of crazy show we have here. Okay. So,
well, Gary's. I think he's in LA. He's getting ready for the Super Bowl, right?
Is that what's that about? Is the Super Bowl happening today?
Yeah, well, today's Super Sunday, so
that's why you need to be early.
Yeah, that's why we need to be. Well, I don't like either team really, so it's really a difficult Super Bowl to watch for me. But I'm a Raider dude, obviously.
I know you're
silver.
Silver
and black.
It's amazing those creations that you do. I don't know of anybody else in the world. I mean, perhaps you could tell me I'm wrong, but I don't know if anybody else in the world creates these stylish, out there eye patches for people who are ocularly challenged. Are you the only one?
I am the only one at this point. I mean, I think some people make things by hand and stuff like that. Maybe, possibly, I don't know, but yeah, I'm the only one doing it right now. But it's not going to stay the same for long.
I've got a friend who's like a kind of punk rock legend of sorts, and I sent him a picture of your description of the Bowie one that you made.
Oh yeah.
I was just showing off really because he comes from a more kind of bohemian set where he thinks boxing's cool, but he probably thinks it's not overly cerebral. He's just one of them artistic types who can't quite relate to this side of life. And I sent him that just to kind of say, and I said my co-presenter Michael Olajide is no ordinary boxer or no ordinary anything else. So I was kind of using you for a bit of kudos with the artistic.
Oh, man, thank you. I appreciate that. that.
But in any case, what we are ultimately valued for is to talk about the sweet science. So I wanted to talk to you about the big fight Thursday night in Las Vegas at Mandalay Bay that saw Teofimo Lopez squeak home with a controversial decision over Jermaine Ortiz. Some people said Ortiz won the fight, and other people said no. Did he? Hell, that it was not a track meet; it's a fight, And they said that there is a line somewhere between boxing and just running and being so negative that you're hell bent on not engaging. What was your take?
Well, from what I seen, and I didn't join the fight early. I got maybe like the 5th round on. I saw. And Teofimo, I'd heard what the commentators were saying, and Teofimo was taking the fight to the kid. The kid didn't look like to be engaging much. And that kind of, I understand, having been in fights like that myself, I kind of understand what he thought may have been happening, but it wasn't. I don't think it was the reality. I don't think the corner was telling him the reality of perceptions. Mm-hmm. And so judges sit down and they look at a fight and have everyone has a different way of looking at a fight. They'll look at a guy moving, but if he's still letting his hands go, that's when, you can move backwards and let your hands go still and be very competent, and win a fight. I just think he was being, from what I saw, from the rounds that I saw onward, he was being very selective, very hesitant, not confident, and I think that's not what they want to see in a guy that they call champion, basically. They want to see somebody, you know what I mean? So, go ahead.
What you appear to be saying, with the admission of that you didn't see the first 4 rounds, you appear to be saying Ortiz probably did win in terms of that basic value base of putting your hands on him on the target area more than he does on you, but he didn't present the kind of narrative that judges are going to depose a champion on, because...
Yeah, so technically he could have won it. Like the leather on his glove hit Teofimo more than Teofimo's leather hit him. Basically, really.
I've got to tell you, I scored it today. I watched it. I watched some of it the Friday morning because it was on a Thursday night. And then I scored it today, this afternoon. It was not a riveting fight. By the way, Chrissy Morton, you see there, Chrissy Morton's just WhatsApped me saying, "Are you on YouTube tonight?" It's like, hey, you know what? Hell, why don't you go on YouTube and see if I'm on YouTube with the Silk tonight? And then there wouldn't be any need to WhatsApp me. I scored it right this afternoon, and I didn't have a preconception, and I wasn't adding up my score as I went along, and I did give 2 rounds even, including the second round and one of the other rounds. When I scored it even, I felt as if I was being as generous to Lopez as I could be, and I came up with 117, 113 for Ortiz, the challenger.
Yes.
John Scully said, because like I say, I remember Frank Lotierzo, who's a pretty good pundit and a pretty credible guy, who talks boxing a lot on Facebook, like myself. He said, I think Ortiz edged it out, and Tio really is an on and off kind of hot and cold fighter. And Dennis Rappaport, another legend of, in his own context of boxing, he said, no. He said, I definitely had Lopez winning. He said, but it was a stinker of a fight. He said, but that was a track meet. Randy Gordon used the same track meet, disparaging analogy. But John Scully, the patron saint of boxing, said, you say that Ortiz didn't throw enough punches, huh? He said, well, you do know he threw 50 punches more than Lopez did. He's going by punch stats, by the way, CompuBox. He said, and he landed more too. He said, fighters who can't find a guy, can't hit a guy, they always say he ran. So Scully was like...
But okay, but at that point, that's when I said, well, it was kind of like negligible, because the fact that you're fighting in retreat and it gives off the impression that, like, if a guy punches at you and you move quickly out the way, just visually it gives off the optics that you're scared. And most people who don't know boxing... or who haven't boxed before will say exactly that. He's scared. He's reacting. He's overreacting. His tension is too high for, he's overdoing it. He's struggling to get out the way, and he doesn't want to engage with them. They don't understand that could be the strategy of the fighter, and they think it registers in their brain as fear. And so if you're afraid of somebody and you're trying not to engage with them because you're afraid of them, then that means the other guy who's trying to engage is the aggressor, and he should be getting points for being aggressive. That's how I see that relation right there.
But do you see that? Is that your value base, or are you just being realistic about what people had the way to fight?
No, I think I'm being a little bit realistic about what people expect and when they see. But I mean, I had a fight somewhat similar to that myself. Like when I fought Tommy Hearns in 1990.
Yeah.
And it was a 12-round fight. And the strategy going into the fight was don't engage for the first 5 rounds or so. That was Angelo's strategy. Angelo was like, I want you to move around, gauge, And the thing is, it was important because, one, I was never fighting anybody nearly like I'd fought Tommy Hearns before. No one with that kind of ability. His kind of reflex, his kind of power. He's a bigger dude, all the rest of that. So I needed to get a sense of, like, you can't, it's hard to prepare for that, man, right? So in sparring, you get guys that are quick, but they may be, shorter or not as powerful and all the rest of that kind of stuff. You're not going to get the exact that you need working with Tommy Hearns. So I have to kind of like adapt in the moment as we're going along. And so the bell rings, bing, I'm coming out and I'm moving around. And the first round ends, and I don't know, we didn't throw very many punches, and I'm moving. I'm up on my toes, but I'm not really running, you know what I mean? But I'm moving. Yeah. And, boo. Second round, Angelo, stay on your toes, move up. Boo. Second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round. And in the 6th round, my trainer, my everyday trainer, Hector Roca said, we're not going to be able to come back and on this. This is only 12 rounds. He's got to start planting his feet and punching. At that time, I stopped and we started going more toe to toe, right?
Yeah.
That's when it turned into a fight people were entertained by. 7th round, all the rest of that kind of stuff. But I thought when I was boxing and I was boxing him in those early rounds, I thought the fight was very close. I don't remember. I wasn't getting tagged up by him. I wasn't, he wasn't dominating. He wasn't wobbling me, but I was moving and then I was countering him at times. And so I didn't think it would be like, I didn't think I was down 6 rounds to nothing, but I did think, he was taking the fight to me. And so I understand where people are coming from when they say from both ways, you know what I mean? From the fighter's perspective, from the viewer's perspective as well.
Yeah. So this guy here has just commented saying, Michael, I used to work as doorman at Chicago's Tonight. I think you used to go there. Tony Pep and Dale Walters used to come by the club.
Oh, that's in Vancouver, I believe.
Yeah. Is that a club?
Hey, what's up? Glad you can catch us.
Yeah. So
Yeah, Tony, you know Tony Pep, right? Dale Walters was an Olympian.
Tony Pep, Tony Pep fought Ricky Hatton, right?
Yeah, I fought Ricky Hatton over in England, and he had some good
Yeah.
fights. My father had trained him as an amateur, and partway through his pro career, then he defected to some guy and started his career with someone else. He fought Mayweather as well.
That's right. Yeah, so he has quite a CV and a famous surname, obviously. The gentleman also said Angelo Dundee caught Hearns when he was young. He told Leonard, if we don't get him now, we'll never get him. I thought Hearns needed more years. I mean, you probably know the story as well, that they were going to meet at one point, it looked like in 1979, Leonard and Hearns. And supposedly Angie was on vacation when these talks were entered into and kind of looking sort of semi-nailed on. And he came back and said, are you crazy? No way on earth is these two going to fight right now. Yeah. He says they can fight down the line, a year, a couple of years down the line, they can fight for $10 million or thereabouts. And he said, and plus the fact Ray is not ready for Tommy yet.
Wow.
So I don't know whether the thing is,
they must have mixed it up as amateurs at some point. I mean, they were amateurs at the same time, not in terms of a fight, but like at one of the camps or.
They had sparred. Leonard and Hearns had sparred at the Kronk because Ray when he was getting ready for the Olympics, he trained at the Kronk and he sparred at the Kronk, Sugar Ray. Yeah. And they called him Superbad at the Kronk. And they really liked him. They said they thought he was special because he obviously was. Yeah. And the Kronk fighters called the young amateur Ray Leonard Superbad at the time, So they did do a few rounds.
They called him Superbad, like more than Bernard Mays, Superbad Mays?
Yeah, it's funny. I know, that's a good point that you said that because obviously the home fighter there who was called Superbad was Bernard Mays, and there was a lot of mystique around him, right, Silk, because nobody had seen a video of him for in this era, and then a bit of footage turned up on YouTube, and I must admit he did look pretty special. He drank himself to death, didn't he, at the age of 34? Yeah. With
really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. But sticking with the what you were saying about.
But Scully said, they always blame the guy that they can't hit for running. That point, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's part of it. So when you look at fights in the past that have been kind of like that, people say Leonard Duran too. They say Leonard ran, and that's why, Duran quit.
Well, to be honest, I don't think they really say. I know what you're saying. Leonard came with a different approach for sure, but I don't think they accuse him of running so much as that. The usual accusation against Ray there that I'm aware of is that they say he deliberately kind of almost tricked and cajoled and hoodwinked Duran into a quick rematch when he wasn't in shape because he'd been partying.
No, he went out of training after his fight. Then they reignited the clause. They ignited the clause. And you know what? That's the responsibility. That's all part of the fight game. So,
it is. I don't like the way they try and take that away from Ray because the thing with Duran, in the in crowd, Duran is rated as a greater fighter than Ray. Just about with most people, the people who rate Leonard as a greater fighter or tend to be people who are more visionary and less influenced by the academic hymn sheet, right? Because the historian's hymn sheet says Duran is a greater fighter because X, Y, and Z or Z. For you Americanized people, but the point being that what I notice, I understand the argument that Duran is a greater fighter, and I don't decry it. But what I do think is Duran gets forgiven as many weaker moments as they like. He's forgiven some performances where he kind of sucked when he wasn't shot or anywhere near shot, and then they just waited for the return to form, and then it's the hail, Roberto again. You know what I mean? Ray would never get away with getting starched by Tommy Hearns like that and beaten by Curtin Lang at that age. No way.
Yeah.
He'd be savagely not forgiven for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And the Ray's fight with Duran, the point was if Ray fought the first fight with Duran like he fought the second fight, many people think it would have been a different fight. He decided to go toe-to-toe with a man who knows everything about going toe-to-toe with Duran. And that kind of, he let the emotional side of things get the better of him, talking about Ray. And he planted his feet and just decided, I'm the bigger guy, I'm faster, I hit harder, all the rest of these things. And what he neglected to realize is it is about skills. Styles don't make fights, skills make fight. And Duran, you can't throw overhand rights against Duran. I've never seen anybody come in with wide shots, overhand shots, and beat Roberto Duran. They have to be.
What about Tommy? I mean, Tommy was that it was. I mean, you could say it was a straight right hand. It wasn't an overhand right when he took him out.
No, it was a straight right hand.
It had an element of overhand, right? I mean, he threw a jab, a double jab to the chest, and then he lowered the boom.
Yeah. So he distracted him. He put the double jab to the body, and then he came with the straight right hand. But that was definitely an overhand right is one that travels kind of like, over the head. Think of Ernie Shavers when he dropped Larry Holmes or Tim Witherspoon.
Yeah, Tim Witherspoon and Anders Eklund. I always think of that KO. Yeah. Okay. It wasn't blatantly looping shot. No.
Yeah. It was very direct and to the point, and that's how you kind of have to work with Duran. You have to be very straight, direct to the point. He picks up all those looping shots, just very much like James Toney. They have that same style in that way. James Toney, if you're throwing looping shots against him, hooks and uppercuts and overhand rights, they tend not to work. But if you're like a sharp shooter from a distance and you're coming right down the pipe, you might do a little bit better, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. So, but either way, I mean, I think I have a predisposition towards supporting a guy who can move. I mean, I quite like this. I like the look of Ortiz as a boxer. He does have great movement, but I have to say that I do think it was a little bit negative. And as you imply, you have to know that you may come a cropper with that kind of approach, and you have to maybe sit down just for spells of a round where you assert yourself and take it to him.
Yeah.
If you're maintaining that game plan of hit and don't be hit, he was definitely pot shotting, but I think it was probably, considering he looks a strong enough guy in any case, he looks a durable enough guy. It probably was. I think he won it on points. I scored it for him. And I would definitely don't buy into this notion.
You didn't really have a problem with it going the other way?
I can't say I worked myself into a lather over at Silk, and I'm capable of doing that over various matters boxing. So I suppose I'm in danger of reaching the conclusion that I don't really care on this occasion. But I think Lopez lost, and I am violently opposed to this hoary old notion that you've got to take the title from the champion. Don't get me wrong, I know that it exists politically. I know that it is a fact that you've got to deal with. But I just think it's such a lot of nonsense, And I hate hearing amateur, armchair fans saying, "Oh, he didn't take the title. That's not enough to rip the belts away." And it's like, seriously, come on. You judge a fight when you judge a fight.
Well, my thing is the opponent has a responsibility to stop. Like Lopez is the champ. He has the responsibility to stop that kid from moving around the ring. He's got to dismantle him. As much as the contender's responsibility is to win and take the fight out. Win the fight against or take the play away from the champ. The champ also has to stop this man. It's about mastery of ability.
Yeah, and that's it, Silk.
That's what I'm saying. It's about mastery of abilities. And so this guy's moving around the ring. Cut the ring off.
Yeah, cut the ring off. Thank you. That was Silk. You hit the nail on the head there. Lopez couldn't do anything about it, and for me, that's a big minus when you're supposed to be the champion. Because Lopez can be some guys, they can be slick and they can have good defense and they can do a lot of things in the ring, but one thing they can't do is chase a guy. They get some guys with fast hands and slow feet. Canelo can't chase the guy. He just, for the most part, he's good at it.
Well, the thing is, what happens when you chase guys is you leave yourself open, like you're committing, and if you're rushing forward, you're overly committing, and you can't stop your own momentum. And if a guy's a good counterpuncher, that's going to be a problem. So so fighters are trained not to go in haphazardly. You know what I mean? You don't just like throw all things to the air and come in and just. But there's a way of systematically breaking a man down and cutting his movement off. You know what I mean? That's what you have to do. But no fighters, even like Alexis Arguello, Roberto Duran was notoriously bad at letting some fighters. Was it Wellington Wheatley or Joseph Nsabuga? Villamar Fernandez, all those guys.
Well, Villamar Fernandez definitely mugged Arguello off the first time. Villamar Fernandez definitely mugged Arguello off the first time with his movement. But Duran chased a lot of guys down like De Jesus and Ray Lampkin was a slick guy. So when you look at movers who gave Duran trouble, you got Curtin, obviously Ray the second time. Curtin and Lang. The thing is, I don't have a problem accepting that Duran was not on Song then. He was definitely going through a phase and
Yeah,
a dip in his form.
sure.
That happens, right? But
Yes.
but he did have a problem with QT's Duran, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why I would give Floyd Mayweather some kind of contending chance against Duran. I don't necessarily say beat Duran, but I wouldn't write Mayweather off against
Well,
Duran.
I wouldn't. I really wouldn't give Mayweather the runner status. I don't think he runs. I
I
think
know, I know that, but he could if he wanted to. Do you know what I'm saying? I
I'm
understand.
sure he could if he
Mayweather,
wanted to.
Mayweather
But
was not a runner. He would stand in front of you, and his defense was based on
exactly.
that. You know, I know that, but you also know if he needed his legs, then he would get on them,
Yeah.
and he could do that against a Duran.
Yeah, he could if he wanted to, and you know, that's the ability to like choose when you want to engage. You know, choose that's it's almost like ring generalship movement, and the fact that you stop, you engage when you want, you get back up on your bike again and move around.
Yeah.
You know, when there's a boxing match and then there's a fight, and I think a lot of times people come to the boxing match to see a fight, and they don't understand what movement is all about. What's the purpose of movement? You know what I mean? And the purpose of movement is you don't want a puncher to get foundation. Once a puncher can grip the ground, like look at George Foreman, for instance, right? Once he can grip the ground and let punches go, forget it, it's over. Like all hell's gonna break loose. John Mugabe, all those guys. Once you settle in front of a puncher, it's over. Harold Graham did that against Julian Jackson.
Julian Jackson, yeah. And the thing is with Harold decided to stick it on Julian Jackson. Where, as you know, Julian Jackson was fighting one-eyed. Excuse me, I realised the faux pas I made last week, but he was fighting one-eyed. He'd been given one more round, literally, to make something happen. And Harold didn't have to be cavalier and go and take it to him like that at all. You know, that is, I honestly believe that it's in the stars for a man like Harold Graham not to become a world champion, and that is what some higher power wanted for his fate. Because why else would it wind up that way? You know what I mean? When he was so close.
You know, I don't know if I believe in so much the higher powers, but self-sabotage is a real thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Self-sabotage is a real thing. It's, you know what I mean? It's not like he said, I'm going to win this fight, let me just throw it away. But it's just the fact that you can't judge the moment. You can't, you're not feeling the fight, which is what great fighters like Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Muhammad Ali, you know, James Toney, all those guys, they know, they feel the fight. They know what's happening, and they're very aware in their presence. And fighters that don't, you know, you make ill-informed decisions from your corner or ones in your own head, and, you know, you're just not, it doesn't work out too well for you, obviously.
Yeah. Justini here is saying, I think based on his lightweight years, Duran is I hate GOAT. I hate that term, so I'm going to say greatest of all time. Can't fucking stand it, man. What he did against Leonard, Barkley, Moore is crazy. They're bigger guys, an all-time great. So he appears to be implying that Duran is the greatest fighter of all time, which I don't quite subscribe to. But you know what? Duran's obviously, he's in that in crowd. He's right up there. If you got him in the top 10 of greatest fighters who ever lived, I think that makes a lot of sense logically, and that's fine. But I wouldn't put him numero uno, but I don't want to get into that again. We go back and forth about Robinson, Ali, etc., etc. But I just thought I would address that comment from the floor.
Why do you hate the GOAT? Sam?
I hate any trendy terms.
That's been around for a long time now.
Huh?
That's been around for a long time. GOAT. That was
it's only the internet era. It's only the internet era. You're going to tell me now it's not, and I can't prove it because you're older than me. But I only
although you wouldn't know looking at us.
I hate all that kind of language. I hate any kind of common argot language. I hate it. I'm different like you. So we're the same in that sense.
All right.
I just can't. I just don't like GOAT. I got so sick of it. I don't like them saying, "Oh, he don't want the smoke. We want undisputed," and all that nonsense. Internet fans, you know. But we're glad of internet fans, by the way, because we're on the internet. And if it wasn't for the internet, you and I wouldn't be connected. And also, don't you think? I mean, we need Gary. We want Gary. We absolutely need Gary. Different energy since Gary came along. But we are a lot more kind of chilled and civilized when there's not three of us on the screen. When it's just you and me, there's not really any interrupting.
Well, I think that happens because all of us want a chance to speak, and the three of us are vying for time.
There's something about three of us that makes everything. Me
Yeah,
and you
I
are
mean,
more
you get less
confrontational
to
with
say.
one another.
There's less to say. You know what I mean? And I think you're less belligerent. Let's just say when Gary's not there.
Yeah, exactly that. I think I don't know what it is. I can't explain it, but that's not to say. Like I say, I think we have a much better product with Gary, but it's interesting the different dynamic when there's just two of us. What we'll have to do is just a silk and stretch show one time where I take a rain check and see how you two do it. That'll be kind of interesting.
Oh man, that would be that. I'm sure we're going to take each other to task on that one. That's for sure.
Yeah, the thing I would fear for is one of you knowing when to end it. I can imagine it going back and forth very well, but I'll be like, okay, guys, it's been 3 hours now. You need to cut the show and get out of it somehow.
Yeah. Landing the plane is much different than taking over when it's already up in the air.
Sure, but okay, so we seem to have a similar value base on. We understand it, but it's not running. It's boxing, but at the same time, you have to. Take it on the chin if you don't get a decision when you're very negative.
And again, at this point, Ben, I have to take to task Ortiz cornermen. Like, what are they thinking? Like, we've seen it a billion times already. We saw it with Oscar De La Hoya in Trinidad. You know what I mean? You never know what anyone's thinking. You need to, one of the most important things of boxing is you need to be able to close the show, seal the deal. Closing is one of the most important things. I mean, look at the way Sugar Ray closed against Hagler, and his thing was all about movement the first time, right? He didn't want to engage, but he boxed.
The first time they only fought once, yeah. They only fought once, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and you know, he didn't want to engage. He get his combinations off and moved out. Hagler has to work for his shot.
But it was much more positive. Yeah.
Even in the 11th to 12th round. You could have made a point and say, hey, Sugar, just don't even engage. Just move around and don't, you know what I mean? Don't let him knock you out. And you won this. No, he still went out there. He closed the show. Stood there, throw furious combinations, turned out, back to the center of the ring. Let Hagler work for his shot. See, that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize. Like, when two guys are exchanging punches, you don't have to work for a shot. It's going to be there. But when you have guys moving, you have to work your man into position. He has to stop punching so you can then throw, or you have a split amount, a very small period of time in between punches to make your punch count or to score with your punch. And that's what these guys just don't understand. Like, I don't know why Teofimo was chasing him all over the ring. His intent was pure, but you know what? People aren't fighting the way you fight. That's not the way boxing's ever been. Boxing is about personalities, and your personality dictates the fight style. And if that meets, then you have to be ready to adapt. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, you got to be able to do more about it. You can't just say he didn't want to fight and he just ran. There's got to be some, you know, but you know, it's interesting. Joe Louis didn't like that either, movers, and it was less vogue in his era. And when the first problems he really had with that style was against Bob Pester before he won a title. When he fought Bob Pester and went 10 rounds, when he was knocking everybody else out. And he said it was a nightmare of an evening and just so frustrating. And in his autobiography, it's interesting because Lewis says he was fighting like Muhammad Ali, just jab run. What's the good of that? He's basically admitting that Ali would have beat him for sure because Ali wasn't Bob Pester. You understand, of course.
Yeah.
You understand it better than most that he wasn't Bob Pester, and he was a whole lot more trouble than Bob Pester could ever be. So, and you know, you see that obviously you saw it with Billy Conn in the first fight, and you saw it with Jose Joe Walcott in the first fight as well.
Yes.
Lewis definitely didn't like that kind of thing at all. And as you say, you let a puncher get set, then it's over. And when someone like Conn and Walcott, when they let Lewis get set, it was over for both of them too.
Yes. Joe, I mean, here's the thing that's always frustrated me about those days. They used to have like the rosin in the ring. You come in, you step in the box, and it used to be like sandy and broken glass kind of thing or whatever. You'd come into the ring, you'd step into the ring, and you'd step into this box of like broken sand and glass kind of thing. Resin, yes, rosin, I said, sorry. Resin. But otherwise, if you didn't do that, your feet, it's hard to grip the ground. So these guys were actually fighting, a lot of them, Jake LaMotta, Rocky Graziano, Zale. They were fighting in the time, even Sandy Sadler, which Willie Pep, which was a whole lot more advantageous for him in a way. But punchers couldn't set their feet and grip the ground unless they were stepping into that the resin every round, which they didn't do. They just had it once, and that's why the referee, when you get knocked down or you slip, they rub the gloves off, not because it's some sort of fancy ritual. It's only because
the thing is, it's like an antiquated ritual, isn't it? Because they don't have the resin anymore, but they do it as the old.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
As amateurs. We got told that as amateurs, if you get knocked down, it was always this thing. They said, right, take a knee. If you're able to, take a knee and look at me in the corner, he would say. Yeah. And then he'd say, and then get up at 8. I'll tell you when to get up. Don't worry. I'll just tell you when to get up. Yeah. And then you wipe your gloves and go like this to the referee, like, let's go, ready to go.
Yeah. But the wiping of the gloves was from the resin. And because you didn't want it to get into your other opponent's eyes, of course, that would be crazy. But they didn't have soles on their shoes that gripped to the ground. So you'd see even early in Ali's fight career, but in Joe Louis's career especially, you'll see that he slipped a lot. He couldn't grip and get the kind of power that he really wanted to get with a lot of his punches. And I thought that was an interesting aside.
Just Danny or Dini as asked, he asked what you're drinking again. We got a lot of questions about the concoctions that you're knocking back on the show. Maybe
this would be pure orange juice this time.
Okay, and he also asked what we think of Margarito's loaded gloves and Panama Lewis and his spiked drinks in the corner is the way he phrased it. Dealing with Margarito first, see, here's the thing, Silk. Unless I know for sure something's happened, I'm not going to run with the narrative. So what I know about Margarito is he was caught the trainer was caught trying to cheat and load his gloves, and Nazim Richardson spotted that and stopped it ahead of the Shane Mosley fight, which is a great performance from Shane Mosley when he really did a number on Margarito. Mm-hmm. That people infer that his hands were loaded against Cotto, and that was the difference in the first fight as opposed to the rematch revenge win. I'm not sure about that. I don't know for a fact that Margarito's gloves were loaded throughout his career or against Miguel Cotto the first time, and I'm not prepared to make that call. I don't know where you stand on that before we get to the Panama Lewis bit.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I'm pretty much in the same area as you. I don't have as much information as I would like to have before I could render a decision. It's kind of unfair to Margarito's abilities. He obviously had enough ability to get out from where he was to get noticed on the world stage. I don't think that would be because he took padding out of his gloves or loaded his hand wraps or whatever it was. But any trainers that do that, though, they should be keyholed.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking of that leads nicely into Panama Lewis, since the gentleman asked. With Panama Lewis, it seems to be well documented, or there's good verbal evidence for the fact that he used to put crushed Ventolin asthma tablets, salbutamol, whatever the popular name for the drug is, which opens up your airways and gives you a kind of burst of anaerobic fitness, which we saw that in the first Pryor Aguayo fight, right, in the 14th round. And he was shouting in the corner twice. He said, "Get me the one I mixed, the bottle of the one I mixed." Yeah. Which is weird that you would say that, but I guess you're not thinking that way, are you? You're just not thinking in the moment. And and then Pryor did come out like a whirling dervish, Tasmanian devil, and finished Alexis off with a devastating flurry. Honestly, I think that Aguayo was getting beaten that night, and I think that Pryor was a superior man. But I know people who think, no, there's a case that he was leading on points. He was leading on one card, I believe, out of 3. Yeah. And I think you believe it was pretty pivotal, that particular thing.
I believe it was pivotal. Listen, I love Darren Pryor. I was his biggest fan. And Arguello as well, equally on both sides. If I were the one in jurisdiction over that fight, even posthumously, right now, I would take that fight away from Aaron Pryor. I would, there should be a ceremony writing this because making this right, because it was so unfair. There's nothing you can have in the corner. I don't even care if it's orange juice. You know what I mean? It could be anything. It could be Kool-Aid, whatever. It doesn't matter. If you have it in your corner, it's not water, and that's the only thing you're allowed to have in the corner. Everything else,
Absolutely.
Everything else, it doesn't matter. The rules are this. So if he said, "Oh, I just put a little Alka-Seltzer in there because he had a sore stomach beforehand," it doesn't matter.
That was the other thing, Silk. Somebody else said it was peppermint schnapps. There was another story that it was peppermint schnapps to settle his stomach because he'd been belching.
Doesn't matter.
What the hell?
Absolutely does. It has no relevancy to the fight. I mean, well, it did in the wrong way. Peppermint schnapps, whatever it was, it could be seltzer water for all I care. It shouldn't have happened. It should be rectified. Alexis should be given that fight posthumously, or it should just be erased off the record, a technical draw or something. But obviously, it hurt Alexis' career afterwards too because he suffered the physical,
Yeah, and he lost the rematch certainly more conclusively. I just quickly talking to people drinking foreign substances. Michael Bate admits to being drunk, but said, "Can you please give my mate Bob a shout out? It's his birthday." So Sugar and Silk will say happy birthday to Bob, who's a friend of Michael Bates. Just want to get that one out of the way. So,
Michael Ben was great. Nice guy.
I think Joe has also done it for us in the comments. And Michael has apologized for being drunk, which, ain't nothing to be sorry for. I did it many times myself back in the day. It's interesting. I almost want to look at this comment from Brian Duncan, who's talking about Greb versus Joe Louis, but I don't really feel we're entirely finished with the Aguayo Pryor thing because see, the way I saw it at the time was that Pryor was the better man, and that was that. But I've maybe it's okay to change your mind. Perhaps you're right. Perhaps I was a little bit too glib in reaching that conclusion. What do you make of the rematch? Because the rematch is a very underrated fight, just because it wasn't quite as exciting.
The rematch is an underrated fight, yes, and Arguello had certainly less resistance in himself than he did the first fight, and who knows? I mean, that loss, the first loss to Pryor was, I mean, had to have been emotionally, physically, mentally devastating. It just had to be. There's just no other way. There's no other way you can explain that. You know what I mean? And Alexis didn't have nearly the same type of resistance to the power and the speed and all the different things that Aaron Pryor was throwing. He didn't have the patience. He didn't have the resilience. And obviously it's because, okay, here we go again. You know what I mean? Yeah. And also the fact that, okay, now Aaron Pryor actually physically broke Alexis, probably mentally and physically in that fight. Right?
Yeah. Well, because he said to his son ahead of the rematch, Aguayo, that apparently his mustache, I guess, was part of his identity and his pride and joy and something that he associated with himself. And he said, "I'll shave the mustache off if I don't beat Pryor this time." And then after the fight, he was dejected. And remember that Aguayo sat it out. He sat on the floor and accepted a KO defeat.
Yeah.
When he probably could have got to his feet, which is unusual with such a great fighter.
Yeah. No, like I said, he was broken. His spirit was broke. He didn't have that fire anymore. I'm not sure how long he fought after that.
So a little while, but so his son afterwards could see how dejected he was, and he said, and obviously they both had in mind the pre-fight promise about the mustache, and he said, "You don't have to shave it off if you don't want." His son said, "Don't worry about it, Dad." And Aguayo said, "Son, if I don't do what I said I do, what kind of example am I setting to you?"
Yeah,
that's the kind of man he was, right?
That's such beautiful character, and I'd always seen that about Alexis, and I'd always felt it about him. I mean, you see it in his personality when he fights. His personality is as clean as his punches. You know,
integrity in every shot. Yeah.
He commits to it. He throws it with purpose. There's nothing,
Mm-hmm. Sorry, people do fight like their personalities and their essence, don't they? Good fighters. Someone who's no good at boxing, they probably can't reflect their personality. But good fighters reflect their nature and essence.
Exactly.
And just like songwriters and singers and guitar players, because it's art, right?
That's
it's the noble art.
Sorry, the last part.
I said because it's art, right? It's the noble art. So
it is art.
But
I'm sorry, your sentences were jumping off on mine. I don't know if I was talking over or the sound went out, but
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. But it might be something to do with your Wi-Fi. At least we're not getting the clattering this week, and we're not getting that funny kind of
the dim.
beeping tone that you get when you get a text. So that's all good. Somebody said to tell people to hit the like button, because I tell people to subscribe to this channel. As spurious as it seems, I think likes are important. I think it helps if you get likes. You know, when you get monetized, we are monetized, by the way. I think that's all part of the process, Silk. So when people say please like and subscribe, it feels a bit stupid asking people to like something. You know what I mean? I've never felt inclined to do that, but apparently that matters. So Justini, who's obviously a knowledgeable guy, says tell them to hit the like button. So that's what I'll say: hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. He also asked Silk, did you train with or know Laurie Mann from Prince George? He's a best friend I grew up with. You
Yeah,
did?
certainly did. I knew Laurie Mann. Yeah, he was a good fighter out of the Pacific Northwest. He did some damage in the amateurs. He was like a junior lightweight, junior welterweight.
Yeah.
And he was running the boardwalk. He did really good. There were a lot of, at that time, the Pacific Northwest, the amateurs were from the States and from Canada were incredible. They were pretty much running it globally. Like they were making a lot
You
of.
always say that. You said it was a golden era of those fighters.
For boxing in that area, it really was. They can just rattle off all the fighters, with the exception of the heavyweights. You know what I mean? But anywhere from like the light, like feather bantamweight, all the way up to I don't know, I guess junior middleweight.
Yeah.
Middleweight. They were all Olympian potential guys. And Canada had some great guys in Dale Walters and Laurie Mann and Willie DeWitt, and we were doing some business at the time. I was too young of an amateur at that time, so I didn't really make that damage at that time. I turned pro before that happened.
You know what? It reminds me. It's a shame we didn't get Greg Hogan. He went radio silence after agreeing to come on the show, because it was weird. Because when I messaged him, I hadn't seen him on Facebook for years, and he came back straight away. Said sure, and I was like, okay, this time they will send you a link. He was like, sounds good. But now he's gone to ground again. But that would have been interesting because we wanted to relive the amateur fight that you two guys had. Did you know Vampire Johnson? Asked Joe.
Willie Vampire Johnson. I obviously heard of him.
Yeah.
Our man Daniel Lalonde took care of that issue, and I believe he did good. He had a couple of wins on NBC, I believe, if not maybe one big win.
He would come to the ring in a coffin.
Yes.
I mean, that is dark, isn't it? I mean, I would think that bordered on the tasteless, but I think it's kind of cool to remember retrospectively. You know.
Well, I guess it's all a part of the entertainment. I don't know who they had carrying him to the ring in the coffin, but I do remember that. I remember they're talking about that on NBC. And who was it? John Mugabe who fought him?
Yeah. Mugabe fought him. Yeah.
What a monster.
Yeah,
that's definitely. He probably left the ring in a coffin after that one too. That was
I mean, Mugabe was a funny guy, you know, because he didn't really. He was. They had a lot of trouble motivating Mugabe and trying to convince him to do what he was capable of doing, because he liked partying. You know, he didn't like getting up in the morning and drink. You know, and running. He did like hanging out and drinking and smoking and. People would see him. I think Claude Abrams, the former editor of Boxing News, saw him with a pint and like in a bar in Vegas and a packet of Marlboros, and he said, "Hey, John," and he went, "Don't tell Mickey, you know, Mickey Duff, don't tell him, right?" And then he said they ended up getting into staying all night and getting into the limbo dancing contest in which they came third, and karaoke and everything else. But that was Mugabe, you know, when it was his happiest, you know.
Yeah. I can see where he's coming from. I mean, listen, a lot of trauma in his early years and a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work to get to where he was able to get to. And, you know, finally got to where he wanted. And, you know, he himself in turn was broken by Marvin Hagler. And after that, he was just never the same because he just...
It wasn't, was he?
Because passion, like that first loss, that determines how great an individual is going to be and how much you really love what you do.
Like Ali Frazier.
Like Ali Frazier, yes.
Contrasted with Mugabe versus Hagler, or Curry versus Hunnigan, and so on.
Yeah.
That's a very pivotal fact. Or Nassim Hamed versus Marco Antonio Barrera.
Yes, yes, that really what you do after your loss defines you as great, as far as I'm concerned. That's why when people come along and they say, well, Mayweather, for instance, Mayweather never lost, and he's like, well, I'm the only one that's perfect. Well, you're the only one that's never been tested to that level, and meaning maybe it's about the talent that you faced. That's not your fault. I absolutely understand that. You can only fight who's there to fight.
But you say that, but see, that's what Roy Jones said.
When you're choosing your opponent, when to fight the opponent, when you're in control, when the dashboard is yours, right? And you have control, I'll fight him when I need to fight him, when I want to fight him, at this temperature, and you know what I mean? At this time of night.
You just said it. It's a nonsense when people in this day and age, when people say, well, you can only fight who's around at the time. That makes out that you've got no jurisdiction over it. If you're micromanaging your career and calling all the shots, because you are the A triple plus side, not just the A side, then come on, man. It's not the same as someone like Harry Greb, who had this crazy resume that you just wouldn't do today because it would be utter madness. But he literally meant any time, any place, anywhere, because he believed himself that much. And I don't know what it was that made him tick, and I don't know how he fought, because we can't see him. But do you know what I mean? You can't say that. And this, when I said to Roy Jones, but before the second Medana fight, I was in Vegas and I was talking to Roy Jones in a car park, like you do, at the opening of the rival boxing store. And I said, how would you compare Mayweather to talking to in comparison to guys like Sugar Ray Robinson and Leonard, etc. And he says you can't really compare him to those guys because. And I think maybe I interrupted and said, but because he didn't have that kind of level of competition. And Roy said, no, he had it. He didn't fight it. And you've got to bear in mind this was before the Pacquiao fight, which was kind of overdue at the time. He said he had it, but he didn't fight it. And he said, and you can't say if he's like those guys. He said, because you don't know how he'll do against someone who's almost as good as him or just as good as him, and someone who knocks him down, and he's got to get up. He says, you don't know. We haven't seen that. He said, that's why. He said, I can't. He said, he's very smart and he got wonderful skills, but I can't talk about him in the same breath as those guys. That was Roy.
Yeah. I like your Roy Jones interpretation, the accent.
Yeah, I was only half going for it.
How long have you been working on that?
No, just what it is. Yeah.
No, but that's again. I guess that takes us back to our, the original point of what were we talking about? We're discussing the kid fighting, fighting in reverse, right? I don't. My brain goes two ways on it. Obviously, or multiple different ways. This kid, when he. Lopez wants to be that dominant figure, that guy who, is considered the bad boy of the division.
Yeah.
He's, bordering on great if he beats people and runs up to welterweight. And he says Crawford doesn't want to fight him. He goes down. He says Davis doesn't want to fight him. And he's seen all these guys don't want to fight him. But I don't know. I don't understand why this fight cannot happen. Do you?
You mean Crawford and Lopez or Davis?
Yes,
and Lopez?
Crawford and Lopez and Davis and Lopez.
Well, I don't, except for the fact that there seems to be a tumult of reasons why lots of fights can't happen. But without wishing to distract you too much, did you know that Davis, the talk at the minute is of Gervonta Davis versus Conor Benn? Have you been picking up on those whispers or the rumblings?
Yeah, I heard a little bit about that.
Eddie Hearn has made him an offer, supposedly. And according to Conor Benn, it's in the region of $10 to $15 million to come. I mean, you think it'd have to be over here in London. And the trouble is, Silk, Ben is not allowed to fight here just yet. That may change in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. Yeah. But I believe the appeal date is coming up. But right now, he's not allowed to fight in the UK. You can't be making Gervonta Davis a tens of million dollar offer to fight Conor Benn in the States. That don't, or can you? Maybe it does work. I don't know. Maybe the zone or
I don't know if it works only because he's not really recognized here in the States. I don't think he's.
That's what I'm saying. So
his name is not in the States what it is in England. And even though
you've got Tank's name, but does that carry the show on that side of the pond?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you think about it, because he fought Pitbull, and Pitbull wasn't a name, and the place is packed, and they,
Uh-huh.
the
But is it a
the
10 to $15 million payday? That's the thing. You think Herm was thinking of it over here, and obviously contingent on that, you would think that they believe they're going to win this appeal, and the border control will have to swing along with them after that appeal is won. I heard it's coming up.
First of all, though, Ben, I think the $10 to $15 million is probably kind of light for what he gets,
Tank
for what
earns.
Davis gets. Yeah, for what Tank
Could be
gets.
right, but I'm not sure. I'm not honestly not sure.
Yeah, I know for fighting the other kid, his
Garcia.
last fight, Garcia, that he earned over, what was it, over 25, something like that, over 25 mil for that.
It was a big payday for a non-title fight, but wasn't it? When you think of the actual real value of the fight, or what you might regard as the real value of the fight, it was very high paying, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, they love seeing Davis fight because he's about his business. You know what I mean? He's not going to do that. What we just saw Lopez do. He's not about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he was too smart for that. I mean, he's a better fighter than. When people ask me my favorite fighter today, I'm not passionate about fighters today. I've got to be honest. Yeah. But I think Tank probably is my favorite fighter.
Yeah. For an entertainment fight, him and Crawford do it for me.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we talk about like styles and attributes and stuff like that, and you look at some fighters, and fighters are the fighters that tend to throw. Like Davis is not a jab first fighter. That's why he is so much more than what the common fighter is. The blueprint for fighters has always been, because the trainers just recycle the same BS every single time. Establish the jab. After you've thrown a jab, then you throw the right. Everything comes off the jab, and that's absolutely wrong. It's being able to throw whatever punch you need to throw is the punch that's the right punch.
I still think the jab is super important, though, Silk.
No. It's as important as any other punch. Absolutely.
I can't go with that, Silk, because listen, right? If I've got to fight, right? I've got to fight anybody, whether it's you or anybody else, and they say you're only allowed one punch, man. You're only allowed one of the 6 basic punches that boxing has. I'm gonna get. It's got to be my jab. It has to be my left.
Of course, jab. It's going to be a jab. You want me to tell you why it's going to be a jab?
Why?
Because it's non-committal, and it's a safety punch first. It's
how the hell am I going to get along boxing for any amount of rounds with just a straight right or a lead hook?
A lead hook or an uppercut or an overhand right. There are many things you can do.
All night using the same shot.
I'm not saying don't use the jab.
No, we were saying if you only have one punch, it's an unrealistic scenario, I know, but we're saying if you only have one punch for the whole fight, and that's all you're allowed to use.
You'd want to use the jab because you don't commit the same, so you're not going to get countered the same, right? Yeah. You're in a position.
Well, that's why
when you throw a jab, it's a non-committal punch. It's generally not a knockout punch. Like, it's absolutely not even in the realm of possibility.
If I can teach somebody, even adults who come to you and they've never boxed before, that's the white collar scene, which I do a lot of work with those kind of people. Yes. If I can teach them balance and a bit of movement and defense and a jab, a decent jab in front of them, they'll be okay. There's no point me focusing on giving them a devastating right hand or left hook to the body.
I'm not saying to give them a devastating right hand, but let me give you a couple of examples. Look at Roy Jones and even Sugar Ray Leonard.
Yeah.
Roberto Duran.
Duran had no jab.
That's what I'm saying.
He had no jab.
Mike Tyson had a jab, but he didn't necessarily lead with it.
No, true. Mike Tyson was one of those guys you say he's actually got quite a decent jab, but it was an afterthought.
Exactly.
But it'd be interesting. I would like to I've said it before, but I would like to have come to you as a trainer from the start. When I say the start, let's say from 18 years old or something, just to see how that played out and to see, to see how that philosophy and that methodology played out, because that would be the proof, wouldn't it?
It's really all about boxing is about doing what's necessary in the moment. You have to be able to react in the moment, real time. That's all there is to it. Everything else is, it's a great plan. It's a great game plan, but to affect that, the jab is the most used punch. So with any intelligent trainer, if I'm going into a fight with a guy who has his guy's got a great jab, I'm like, yo, we're gonna eat him up because this is exactly what you're gonna do. Every time a fighter's fist leaves his body, he's open to be hit. That's all there is to it. You know, that man's jab, which is I guess his defensive punch, or he's scoring without committing. Every time he throws that left hand out here, this is all open. He can't throw the right hand at the same time. So there's a beat every time he's throwing that punch. You can come over, you can come under, you can get to the side. There's so many things you can do off it. And that's how boxing gets better. And that's how boxing gets more advanced. When people start thinking like that, it's, you use a man's offense against him. His offense is your offense.
Yeah, and you did make the point that there are more ways to counter the jab than any other shot. So if it's the most important punch and it's the most crucial punch, it's also the most vulnerable move you can make, in theory. Yeah. I want to answer this, although I don't know how much you can answer it because I don't know how familiar you are with this guy, but it's been causing a lot of noise on this side of the pond. David Corbett says, what are your thoughts on the dancing showboater Ben Whittaker? Have you seen that light heavyweight kid, flashy, from England?
Oh yeah, I saw highlights of him. He's doing kind of like a...
He's taking it to a new level, that lariness of showboating and cockiness and swagger. He's taken it, he's built on whatever Leonard Gomez, you know, and that Prince Nassim Hamed and other guys like Roy Jones or anybody else who ever showboated.
Yeah, he kind of weaves it into his offense, like it's a real like who's the kid, the drunken master,
Emmanuel Augustus.
Yeah, Emmanuel Augustus,
like that. Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So that's a good comparison. So some people hate him. You know, hardened, good boxing fans and observers and insiders say, I can't fucking stand this kid. I can't wait for him to get knocked out. It's too much. It's disrespectful. You shouldn't be doing that to journeymen and, you know, and also Rands who are like over 40, which I believe his last opponent was. But you know what? He's just trying to build a brand, Silk, and he's trying to take it to a new level. We've already seen
is he trying to build a brand though, or is that his real thing? Like, has he always fought like that?
I think he's probably always had shades of that, but I think he's doing it deliberately right now.
And he implements it more when he feels probably more confident or you know what I mean? So we really don't know what his basic fight style is. But here's the thing, like Roy Jones, for instance, when he showboated, when he fought, not only is that, I mean, that's a weapon to him, right? So it's not about making that man look stupid or funny or anything like that, unless somebody got on his wrong side and he comes around and hits him and then runs around before you hit him again before he hits the ground. You know what I mean? It's really his fight style. It's the way in which he fights. It's the only way he gets that exuberance, that energy.
I think he is also trying to be the guy that some of them love to hate. I think that's part. They made a point that he got 100,000 followers in 24 hours after his last fight on, I guess X, Twitter, right?
Yeah. Well, he's different, so he's going to be seen.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I don't think it would be. I think it'd be disingenuous of me to criticize him too much for that, whether he's my cup of tea or not. Because when you get older, I think you probably. I'm sure when I was younger, I would have loved him. I'd have been like, I need to do that. You know, I want to try and do that because that's what you are.
I look at that style and I kind of smile and all the rest of that kind of stuff. And there are people that'll punch through it, like. You know, I mean, imagine him trying to do that with Beterbiev. That's, you know,
exactly that.
It's not really a healthy style to go in there with. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. And if you can do it to Beterbiev, like Leonard did it to Duran, and that's a different level of respect and adulation.
Yeah, but Leonard did it to Duran in a different way. He was he was at a very safe distance when he did it, and he did it for a very short capacity. It wasn't like he was standing right in front of him and doing all this turning and pivoting and all that madness. You know what I mean? He was like, Duran, they were disengaged, they were at a distance, and then he did what he had to do. Listen, it's easy to shut that style down. All you do is you put a right hand on his chest hard. Yeah. And all of that's going to go out the window. All of that's going to go out the window. Trust me on that. And that's why I say, you know, fighting someone like Beterbiev who's going to just – he'll be right here. He'll be focused on this right here, from here until your navel. And he'll hit you there and he'll stop all that movement. and then we're going to see how you really fight. I like the fact that they have fighters that come out different and do it different, and it's interesting, it's intriguing, it's challenging, it's enlightening. You know what I mean? But guys who use feints and they're distractions. And if you're the type of fighter, if you don't have the ammo to handle it, then yeah, you're going to get caught because, you know what I mean? You're what is that when they call it? You're sort of like caught, you're hypnotized by the movement, and you're hesitant because you're thinking about, oh my God, when is he going to hit me? Oh my God, when is he going to hit me? And you're just thinking about that instead of now's my turn to hit him. Winning fighters say, when he's doing that, I'm going to punch a hole through him. That's all there is to it, and that's how you handle that issue.
I don't want to alarm anybody, but Michael Bates says he's going to have to put us on the tablet because he's now watching Love Island on the TV. What he's saying, Silk, is we come second as a priority to Love Island. I don't know if you're familiar with that particular show, but you know,
I don't know that show. It sounds like is it a reality show where they have people like fall in love with
a bunch of inanely good-looking people of both genders on an island, and we see what happens with the cretins as they relate to each other and whether they copulate or not. You should. It's probably right up your street, I imagine.
Well, you know,
Gary would have been on it if it had been a different era and he was younger again today.
I think Gary would prefer to go on it right now. Never mind.
Yeah, mate, they should. I think they should put Gary on a reality show. Maybe that would be good. Now he's getting his profile up just because he's hanging out with us now. You know, we should maybe his agent needs to put a word in for that.
Absolutely.
But you either like him or hate him, says David. Hamed was the same, and Nassim Hamed was the same. He says, talking about Ben Whittaker, that is, you know. But it's fun. See, that's the thing, Silk. I don't want to become anti Ben Whittaker because that's my tradition. You know, I always like fighters who did it differently and had that kind of swagger. Yeah. So it would only be confirmation that I'd become a bit old and bitter. You know what I mean?
Well, what I'm saying is, as you said, that he's got, you know, swag. Maybe he doesn't see it as swag. I'm saying maybe he really just, that's his fight style. I haven't seen, other than the highlights that I've seen, has he done that with everyone he fought?
Yeah, honestly, this is his big thing, Silk. He's fucking leery as hell. And people are going, can't stand him. What a disrespectful prick. This is something he is doing very deliberately. And he's really laying it on thick. Super
and they think he's disrespecting his opponents and making fools of them. And this,
loads of my friends.
Instead of it being a real fight style, like this is his fight style. It's so different from anyone else's. It's kind of like, I know. Well,
listen, he didn't box like that in the Olympics because he was worried about not getting a medal. You know, he wouldn't box like that in the Olympics, would you? He's a silver medalist.
He wouldn't box like that in the Olympics because they'd fire him, right? Like
exactly. Well, they fire him. Yeah, they disqualify him. Yeah. So he's done it since he turned pro. You know, but
he's turned pro because there's a lot more. Right? There's a lot more levity. There's a lot more ease and it's like you can really. The amateurs have a way in which they like you to fight, period. That's it.
Yeah,
they want to see you fight a certain way. You can't let your head go down below the guy's belly button. Like if you're slipping a punch.
Exactly. I used to get pulled for that as a kid. They said I was ducking too low, they said sometimes.
Yeah. I was like, well, how am I supposed to get out of the way of his punches if I can't duck? That's crazy. But they want you up here and they want you fighting like fencing.
Stand up, they want to stand up Olympic type style.
Yes, exactly. In the amateurs, now when you get to the pros, that's when you're starting to see, personalities at that point. It's a different thing. So I don't know if that was something he wanted to do as an amateur, but couldn't do it because obviously he wouldn't be successful. So he had to, cultivate this style. And now that he's back as a pro and he has the freedom to do what he wants, that's the way he's going to do it.
Yeah. But what's this? I'm just looking at this comment. It says,
yes.
I've been called ugly in the past. What is the best thing to do for the he doesn't say, it's very enigmatic. He says, I've been called ugly in the past. What is the best thing to do for the, and then, or maybe we're supposed to fill in the blank. I don't know.
Maybe it's a, what do they call that show with the Wheel of Fortune? Wheel of Fortune. Go ahead.
Yeah, we've got to think of the answer.
I'll take an A for 200.
Yeah, exactly that.
You took it down. What's up?
Well, yeah, like I say, it ends enigmatically. It says, I've been called ugly in the past. what is the best thing to do for the, and then he doesn't say for the what.
For the visage, I think.
I'd probably. I mean, you know,
that's just the best thing to do for. Well, go ahead, Ben. What would you say is the best thing you can do for his visage?
I know, get an eye patch and a bandana.
You know what? The eye patch works right away.
I mean, no one could say you. No one could ever accuse you of being, unattractive. Obviously, you had that going on. You still got going on today. But I don't know really. I guess you've got to. What is the best thing to do when you've been bullied? Well, certainly in that instance, you have to confront it, right? You have to stand up for yourself, and you have to confront it, knowing that the reality, whatever the confrontation is, the reality of it is usually less. It's usually easier than the actual anticipation and the trepidation of the confrontation. Once you get stuck into whatever it is the confrontation, then it's usually there's a relief. I'd have thought.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've always thought that conflict happens when you stay in one place. So the most important thing in anticipation of, there's going to be conflict, don't stay in one place. Always keep it moving. If you're always moving, nothing can stick to you.
In closing, I think this as we wind down, Justini says, do you guys think Tyson Fury's cut is legit? So many in the know think it's bogus. A close-up of the cut looks too clean, like a razor blade did it, as opposed to other cuts, which tend to be more jagged. Wow. I mean, I think it's legit. You know what it is, Silk? Some people are questioning it's legit, but it didn't happen in the video they showed. And I know you said it looks like a punch, but in the video that they were presented as where the elbow allegedly hit him and caused the cut. But that's what people are saying. I think it's legit, but I think the issue is what's Julian McGowan says Fury's cut is legit, I think. But the issue is the Furies are too hard to believe on so many levels. I think that's one of the problems, that Fury has that reputation as being the kind of guy. He tells you it's raining, you look outside.
Yeah. I think that's his. Tyson's reality is different from everyone else's, and so it's the boy who cried wolf. After a while, it's, He said it was one thing, and you didn't believe him. Now the truth really is there. The wolf is at the door. The cut really happened, but no one believes it because you're just you BS us all the time.
And do you know what? If they don't fight on May the 18th, I think it's a legacy killer for Fury. If they don't fight May the 18th this time.
Well, you know how I feel about the whole Fury thing.
You're like, what legacy? That's what you're going to say. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying.
But I do believe that this cut is legit. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've seen cuts before, and that is, you know what I mean. That's a real cut. Whether it was caused by a razor or not, I highly doubt that. You can never put anything by anybody, especially when you're dealing with the kinds of money they're dealing with. But he'd get more for fighting him than sitting on the sidelines cutting his eye with a razor.
Exactly. That's pretty out there, isn't it? The theory that something bogus attached to it is based on the idea that he wasn't ready for this February 17th date.
Yeah, I don't think he was either. I honestly couldn't see him getting himself in shape after the Ngannou fiasco. Yeah. and then turn around, went back into training camp, and this happened. I understand where people are coming from. It doesn't make sense but when does Tyson Fury ever look in shape? I've never seen a picture of him.
No, he's never. Do you know what though? Have you seen those pictures knocking about where he looked really lean and hard, and people were saying he was in the shape of his life? You got to be mental to say he did this to buy himself time, and you're crazy if you think he cut himself or faked the injury. Mm-hmm. There was pictures of him looking very as chiseled as Tyson Fury has ever looked. Okay, as chiseled as Fury has ever looked.
What chiseled with a rolling pin?
Yeah, and then again, you get people saying, "Yeah, those photos they were from fucking 1962, though, or whatever." So I don't know. I mean, I'm tired of all this stuff, where you can't believe a word somebody says or any case that might be presented. What's David Corbett say? The bridge of the eye is solid bone on your skin, can split clean with a hard enough punch. But I think Fury I think Fury doesn't want this fight in his heart of hearts. Yeah. His heart and head's not in it, sorry. Still don't think it will happen.
It could be the perfect storm. I mean, it could be. I mean, the two just like it happened like it could be a blessing in disguise, I guess is what I want to say. He
I mean, are
wasn't.
you confident or that it will happen on May the 18th now, or you just?
I'm indifferent. Whether it happens or not, it has no bearing on my
Life.
happiness,
Yeah.
yeah, or on my on how I see boxing. But would I like it to happen? Sure. I'd like to see it. Even more for Usyk than anything. I'd like to see. I mean, I like the kid. I think he's got a lot of great ability, and he's got a chance to do something really interesting in boxing. And the light shining on boxing is always a good thing, as far as I'm concerned.
And you know what? If there is a silver lining attached to it on a more personal level, we've been thinking about a trip to Saudi Arabia for Sugar Silk and Stretch when the time is right. I did apply for accreditation this time, but we'll probably be in a better position, the three of us, to attend in May the 18th than we would have been this coming Saturday. Do you know what I mean? So perhaps we can put it together in time for that particular.
So that fight would have been this Saturday coming up.
That's right.
Oh my God, could you imagine? Yeah, so I mean, it was kind of like late in the game, but you
15 days
as a
before.
competitive fighter, you spar all the way up to the fight anyway.
It hit 15 days before, and we had that. You had all the armchair coaches saying, "What was he doing sparring 2 weeks out?" And obviously, people have actually been around and done it like you. Said, "Are you crazy?" We always did that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, it's necessary not only for the ritual of it, but like the mindset and the hardening of the body. The body 2 weeks out before a fight, no. In fact, the last 2 weeks before the fight is when you hit your fit, not only physical, like you're maybe a month out, 3 weeks out, you're maintaining the physical, but the mental peak is definitely within the last 2 weeks approaching the fight. You can't be mentally like. That's one of those things when we talk about when fighters peak at the right time, and it's so important for the trainer to understand his fighter and his fighter's mentality, not just his physicality. So he's going to bring him up to the gate, right? He's going to bring him up to the gate physically. Now that mental has to match as well. It can't be like this. The physical is back here and the mental is up here. They both have to cross the finish line at the same time in order for the fighter to put in his best performance. And that. And I guess, that wasn't happening. And maybe that's why it was fortunate or fortuitous that he got cut, because he couldn't pull out there's no way he could pull out without that cut. Absolutely.
No, he needed a big reason. And supposedly there's going to be a $10 million penalty if either one of them pulls out again from the May the 18th date. So,
that's the penalty, huh? They're getting paid.
According to that Turkey Al Sheikh, they did a Zoom. It was Turkey and Tyson and Egis Kilmas and Usyk, Kilmas being his manager. They had a Zoom call, to try and clear the air. And he said there will be a 10 million. He said, "Don't worry, it is what it is. May the 18th is a new date, and there'll be a forfeit of $10 million of their own money if they can't fight."
And how much are they getting paid?
Oh, it's something like, I don't know the precise figures, but maybe 50 million kind of.
Wow.
Stuff. Maybe more. That could even be 80.
That's insane.
It will be the richest payday in boxing history for both of them.
That's incredible. Wow. Yeah. That really is mind blowing. I mean, it absolutely makes sense. I just hope fighters don't realize just because you're getting paid a certain amount of money, that means you're great. Because that's not how it is. It's the fact that many people just have their eyes on you. You know what I mean? It's like the population on the planet Earth is bigger these days than it was back in the day. You can't tell me that if you had Usyk versus Fury today, and then you had Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier today, and they were both side by side, right? Yeah. If they were both side by side, they're both going to happen on May 30th. One's going to be on HBO, the other one's going to be on Showtime. And given their histories, you're going to tell me that the Fury fight's going to outdraw the Ali-Frazier fight.
No, I don't think it would, even though you look at the inflation and the supposed value of the Ali-Frazier fight today, and Ali-Frazier still kind of pales in comparison. But you know what? You can't trust those figures. When people say, when people say that money is worth this today, if you trust Google to tell you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Russell Peltz made a good point when he said that Benny Briscoe's purse when he fought Marvin Hagler was supposedly I forgot what the purse was, and I forgot what it would be worth today, but it was what it was at the time, and then it had a certain value today. And he says, but the thing is, that's what Google tells you. He says, but we all know the $15 ticket will cost about $300 today. He said, so that is what you need to look at when you think of the value of the purses and how you inflate them, which would actually make them a good deal more than Google estimates today.
Sure. But at the same time, I don't think either Hagler or Benny Briscoe were going to, we're happy with their purse. Let's just put it that way. You know what I mean?
No, because you know what else Russell said? He said back then when TV, he said we sold tickets. He said because that was the only way we made money on a show, by selling tickets. He said, and when TV came along, he said, they paid what a fight was worth, not overpaying like today to try and control the market.
Yeah. It's a total different beast. Yeah, and paying what it's worth. Like, no one wants to say what it's worth. I don't know. Fighters are always getting the short end of the stick, and so I think that's why when we see a lot of fighters that go hard when it comes to negotiating, they do, because there's just a long line of it being disproportionate in terms of the money and how they're distributed. Fighters should always be getting number one, but it's just not going to happen.
Supposedly, Julian reckons 50 million each plus the usual trimmings or bonuses. But he says Floyd Mayweather earned a lot more in his last few fights. Golden Era Boxing says that this is somewhat crazy for an average overrated heavyweight and a cruiser. This fight will not make a profit. The Sheikh has been shook down.
And that's the thing. I think they're new to boxing and they have the money to throw at it. And the whole people are excited about it in some way for some reason. I'm not quite sure what it is that makes the fight so intriguing.
Well, it's the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world, assuming they get in the ring.
But okay, Ben, but does that really interest you?
Well, I'm a little cynical by this point, in terms of any of that stuff, because I know that they won't.
Forget about whether the fight will happen or not, but does this fight interest you at that level?
It's not about me. If things are like me, you'd never have heard of Jake Paul ever, and there'll be nobody talking about John Fury and Joe Egan. It literally would not exist. The world would be some very tasteful, but very different place if it was all about what I thought of it. What I'm saying is it's the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world, and that has an automatic commercial value, and there's an obsession with it and a fixation with it. And also Fury is box office for whatever reason, and Usyk is seen as, there's an intrigue based on the fact that Usyk is seen as everything that Fury isn't. And he gets the vote of the people who are not into Fury's histrionics and trash talk and clickbait. He gets the dignity kind of vote. And people think, enough people, including you, think Usyk can beat him. So there's a lot of eyes on the fight for sure.
Yeah. I know, it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't have the same high seas drama. Maybe it's because I really think Usyk will beat him. So I don't see it as dramatic as it could be or should be looked at. I guess we're going to see.
Justine says the Saudis will enable fights to get made, that should get made, take some politics and greed out by flooding the zone with cash. The problem is if they pull out or they lose interest, Michael, or they change their kind of strategy. It's interesting what kind of expectations they're going to create, which cannot be fulfilled after a certain point. That will be interesting, And
who is that? You mean the Saudis won't?
Yeah, I'm saying that if they establish this, but to the point where these guys are getting all this crazy money, so they're happy to make the fights that previously they held out on, it may create unrealistic expectations sustainably for fighters. You know what I mean? Maybe at some point, maybe they'll lose interest in this. This flirtation, it might be.
Yeah. No, I absolutely.
What do they leave behind?
Yeah, I think what they're doing, the Saudis, and I could be wrong, is they're looking to make their country the place, entertainment capital of the world.
And the strategy is not just in boxing; it's also got reverberations in other sports, like with they're getting involved in, and I believe they've done other things too.
Yeah. And they've got the money to do it. And they're like, well, what else are we going to do with it? Like, what else do we have? Right. So, to be the entertainment capital of the world, like no one else really has that. It kind of was Vegas at one point, but I mean, I just don't know if they're probably not going to have gambling over there. That's for sure. Right.
Well, people have said they need to relax certain laws and culture over there to really make this happen. On the scale they wish to make it happen, but we got to get out of here too, because one is you wanted to do the show an hour early so you could get and watch the Super Bowl, so we don't want to go into the next hour too much, but also I'm only down to 10% and I can't charge this thing while we're actually doing the show.
That battery causes us more agita than I don't even know what.
But so with your blessing I'm going to close this one now, but see, that was a cool show. It's always a sedate kind of laid back show and it's just you and me, but hopefully Gary will be back for more madness and constant interrupting and everybody vying for
but Gary has a very sedate laid back approach. I don't understand why we have more histrionics when he's there. It's not like
but it's true though, isn't
it? Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's more reasons for us to go at each other. I think
there is, but but what can we? Let's not try and analyze it. You can't analyze genius. Let's just run with it, right? This is bigger than all of us. Okay.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and please press the like and subscribe button if you haven't pressed it already. We're going to be back next week with all the latest in boxing. It won't be Fury Usyk, but there's bound to be something. In the meantime, stay tuned.
And I'm still #1 on the.
Let's remember that he feels good. He knew that he would. That's it. He feels nice. With sugar and spice.